My name is Alex Marcus, and I am 70 years old. An African-American man, born with calloused hands and a heart that has seen both kindness and cruelty. I've lived long enough to understand that life doesn't always give you what you deserve. It gives you what you fight for. I gave my whole life fighting for one thing: my family, especially my son. I raised him alone after his mother passed away when he was just 8. I worked double shifts, drove trucks at night, and fixed engines by day just to make sure he had everything I never did. My whole world revolved around that boy, David. When he was little, he used to look at me with those bright eyes and say, "Daddy, one day I'll make you proud." I used to smile and say, "Son, you already do." And for years, I believed that. I believed love, loyalty, and family never fade. But I was wrong. Time has a way of showing you who really stands with you when everything else falls apart. David grew up, studied business, and soon started a company with my help. I sold my old house, every tool I owned, even my late wife's jewelry, all to make sure he had the capital to begin his dream. The company took off like wildfire. Within a few years, he became a well-known name in the business world. Fancy cars, designer suits, big houses, everything he ever wanted. I was proud. I thought, my boy made it. I thought maybe now, in my old age, I could finally rest. But success changes people. It doesn't always change them for the better. It started small. David became distant. He stopped visiting my room, stopped asking if I'd eaten. The warmth in his voice faded into something cold, detached. I told myself he was just busy, that the pressure of business was getting to him. I excused it over and over because that's what fathers do. They forgive, even when they're forgotten. Then one morning, everything shattered. He came into my room, looking sharp in his tailored suit. His tone was businesslike, too formal for a conversation between father and son. He said, "Dad, we need to talk." I looked up from the newspaper, smiled, and said, "Sure, son. What's on your mind?" He didn't sit. He didn't smile back. He just said, "Dad, I can't do this anymore. You're getting old. I have meetings, clients, responsibilities. I can't keep worrying about your expenses, your health, your presence. You disturb the peace in the house. I think it's best if you find somewhere else to live. I'll send some money every month if that helps." For a second, I didn't understand what he was saying. My ears rang. My throat went dry. I stared at him, searching for a trace of the son I once knew. The boy who used to run into my arms after school. The one who cried when his mother died. But all I saw was a stranger in a $1,000 suit, asking his father to leave the home he built. I wanted to shout, to ask, "How dare you?" But I didn't. I just stood up slowly, folded my newspaper, and said quietly, "If that's what you want, son, I'll go," and I left. I packed my old suitcase, the same one I'd carried when I first came to the city 50 years ago, and walked out without looking back. The house felt colder than ever, and I knew if I turned around I'd break. So I kept walking. For weeks I stayed in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. The walls were thin, the bed creaked, and the room smelled like dampness and rust. But I wasn't broken. I was just quiet. I had spent 70 years giving. Now it was time to take back something for myself. One day, I ran into an old friend of mine, Mr. Howard. a retired investor who had known me from my mechanic days. He looked at me and said, "Alex, you still got that fire in your eyes. Don't let age fool you. You can build again." And something inside me clicked. That night I couldn't sleep. I thought about everything I'd done for my son, everything he'd thrown away. And then I realized something powerful. He might have taken my home, but he didn't take my mind. I still had my experience, my instincts, my wisdom, and those were sharper than ever. So I started small. I began investing the little savings I had. I read business journals, followed the markets, learned new trends. Every day, I worked on rebuilding myself silently. Within a year, my small investments turned into decent returns. I partnered with a few trustworthy people I met through Howard. We started a small logistics and supply company that grew faster than I expected. Meanwhile, my son's company, Marcus Enterprises, was expanding. But I knew something he didn't. Every big company depends on smaller ones. He needed suppliers, contractors, transporters. And guess who started getting those contracts? Me. He didn't even know. The deals came through intermediaries. My company grew quietly behind the curtain of his success. While he stood on stages giving speeches about power and business genius, his own father was the invisible force fueling a big part of his empire. Years passed, and then opportunity knocked in the sweetest way. One of his major investors wanted to sell his shares. He needed a buyer fast. I bought them through my firm. Then another and another. Piece by piece, I began acquiring silent control. By the 5th year, I owned nearly 70% of Marcus Enterprises through shell companies. My son still had no idea. He thought he was untouchable. Until the day the board called a surprise meeting. It was a sunny morning when he walked into that glass-walled boardroom. The directors were all seated, quiet and serious. He looked around, confused. "What's going on?" he asked. That's when the chairman, my appointed man, stood up and said, "Mr. Marcus, there's been a change in ownership. The controlling shares of the company have been transferred. Your new majority owner would like to meet you." The doors opened. I walked in, cane in hand, wearing a clean gray suit. His jaw dropped. His eyes widened. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Dad?" he whispered. I walked up slowly, every step echoing through that silent room. "Yes, son. You said I disturbed your peace. Now I own your business." The room stayed silent for a long time. He couldn't speak. His lips trembled. I could see guilt drowning his face. Tears welled up in his eyes as he muttered, "I didn't mean to. I was stupid." I raised my hand. "Don't explain, son. Life already did it for you. I didn't do this to destroy you. I did this to remind you. Never throw away the people who built you. Because sometimes the old roots you cut off grow into trees that overshadow you." He fell silent, then slowly stood, walked over and hugged me. He cried on my shoulder, the same shoulder he once leaned on as a boy. And in that moment I felt no anger, no hatred, just peace. Because revenge doesn't always have to be cruel. Sometimes it's sweet, silent, and poetic. Now every time he walks into his office, he greets me with respect. He offers me coffee. He calls me sir. He learned what I always knew, that love and loyalty are worth more than all the wealth in the world. And as I sit in that big office overlooking the city skyline, I sometimes smile to myself. Life came full circle. The same house that threw me out became the reason I stood taller than ever. Because in the end, revenge doesn't have to burn. It can shine. It can heal. It can teach. And it can remind those who forget. You can't buy respect. And you can't bury dignity. My name is Alex Marcus. And this was my sugar revenge. Slow, patient, and sweeter than anything life ever offered me before.